Today, hundreds of South Koreans detained after an immigration raid in Georgia are flown home. A deadly shooting in Jerusalem leaves several dead. Japan considers replacements after the resignation of Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. France's political turmoil looks set to deepen with a no-confidence vote. And the biggest names in music turn out for the MTV VMAs. It's Monday, September 8th. This is Reuters World News, bringing you everything you need to know from the front lines in 10 minutes, 7 days a week. I'm Kim Vanell in Whanganui, New Zealand. First to Jerusalem, where several people have been killed in a shooting at a bus stop on the outskirts of the city. Israeli police say they killed the two attackers. It was not immediately clear who carried out the shooting or what was the motive. Palestinian militant group Hamas praised what it called two Palestinian resistance fighters for carrying out the attack, though it stopped short of claiming responsibility. You can find the latest on this story on Reuters.com and the Reuters app. South Korea is set to fly back hundreds of detained workers following a massive immigration raid on a Hyundai plant in Georgia. South Korea says the images of helicopters circling,
GSP in position, north side,
federal agents rolling up in armoured vehicles en masse, and shackling workers are regrettable. US President Donald Trump says the Washington-Seoul relationship remains strong. The raid is, however, forcing other major companies in Asia to rethink investing in the US, with more raids on the cards. Reporter Josh Smith is in Seoul.
Under previous administrations, there appeared to be quite lax enforcement. So South Korean companies got very used to sending in a lot of workers on ESTAs or B-1 visas or other legal measures. And so what we would expect from companies now is them trying to navigate, not being able to send people in the ways that they've been used to for a very long time. And given that they're, in the case of Hyundai, as well as other companies, are really trying to ramp up some of this investment as pressed by President Trump, this has really cast doubts over those efforts.
President Trump says several European leaders will visit Washington this week to discuss the war in Ukraine. Trump says he's not happy about the status of the war and says he will speak to Russian President Vladimir Putin again soon. It comes as Russia hit Ukraine with the biggest air attack of the war so far. The attack set fire to the main government building and also killed at least 4 people, including a baby. That's according to Ukrainian officials. President Trump is walking back the rhetoric on Chicago. You might have seen his social media post on the weekend, an apparently AI-generated image depicting himself as an officer from Apocalypse Now, with the text, "Chicago about to find out why it's called the Department of War." Asked whether he wants to go to war with Chicago, the president, speaking before boarding his helicopter, called it fake news.
We're not going to war. We're going to clean up our city. We're going to clean them up so they don't kill 5 people every weekend. That's not war. That's common sense. Why?
Trump made that statement before heading to the US Open in Queens, where he received a mixed welcome from the crowd. Both boos and cheers heard as Trump appeared on the big screen at Arthur Ashe Stadium. Speaking on the tarmac after returning from the match, Trump appeared unfazed.
I really enjoyed it. They were really nice. The fans were really nice.
Carlos Alcaraz won the match, by the way, beating Jannik Sinner and claiming the US Open crown for a second time. Over to Gaza, where a UN hunger monitor is warning there is a narrow window to stop famine from spreading. Israel has launched a new offensive in Gaza and is pushing further into Gaza City, the enclave's largest urban area. Donald Trump posted an ultimatum to Hamas on Truth Social, saying the Israelis have accepted Trump's terms and Hamas must accept as well. He said Hamas is aware of what the consequences will be, but did not elaborate. He later suggested a Gaza deal could come soon. Japan is in limbo as it awaits a vote on who will replace Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba. Ishiba announced his resignation on Sunday after a series of bruising election losses. The frontrunners to lead his LDP party and become Prime Minister are thought to be Shinjiro Koizumi, who would be the youngest Prime Minister of the modern era, and Sanai Takaichi, who would be the first woman at the helm. And as reporter John Getty in Tokyo explains, Takaichi in particular is causing investors in the world's fourth largest economy to fret.
The reason investors are particularly interested in that is Takaichi was very close to the late Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and a supporter of his Abenomics, which is increased spending and loose monetary policy. And for investors, that is kind of sounding alarm bells given the state of Japan's debt levels and questions over the sustainability of that.
The yen is falling in the wake of Ishiba's resignation. Oil prices, meanwhile, climbed in early trade after OPEC Plus agreed to raise output at a slower pace from October on expectations of weaker global demand. Analysts say expectations of tighter supply from potential new US sanctions on Russia are also lending support. And speaking of tight supply, a quick pivot to the issue of beef. Specifically, how drought, international trade, and screwworm are affecting the cattle industry and pushing the price of beef out of reach for a lot of people. We have an episode about just that on Reuters On Assignment podcast out now. We'll put a link to that in this episode's description. French Prime Minister François Bayrou is expected to lose a confidence vote today, plunging the Eurozone's second-largest economy deeper into political crisis. Reporter Gabe Stargarder is in Paris.
For quite a few years now, France has been mired in a mounting debt crisis. François Bayrou, the Prime Minister, is the latest person tasked with trying to solve this problem. But basically what he did is that he said, let's have a confidence vote on me and on my proposal to cut 40-odd billion euros from next year's budget. If he loses this vote, his government collapses. There have been 4 governments in less than 2 years. Obviously, that's an incredibly unstable political state that France finds itself in. It's unclear exactly what the next steps would be. Macron is the only person who could, say, dissolve parliament and call fresh legislative elections. He could also name a new prime minister, which seems the most likely path, perhaps with the leftists. But that new prime minister is going to have to face the same problems that Bayrou has faced, which is that France has to push this debt reduction plan through a parliament which is just totally unwilling to concede on any of these issues.
In Australia, the woman convicted of killing 3 of her relatives by serving them a beef Wellington lunch laced with deadly mushrooms has been sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum of 33 years without parole. Presiding judge, Justice Christopher Beale, says Erin Patterson showed no pity.
The prosecution submitted that you must have anticipated that your victims would suffer in the way they did. I am satisfied of that beyond reasonable doubt.
To hear the whole story of the so-called mushroom murder case, you can go back and listen to a special episode we did where we unpack the whole thing. We'll put a link to that in today's podcast description. And finally today, the biggest names in music have turned out for the MTV Video Music Awards.
Sabrina, hold that!
From Sabrina Carpenter to Ariana Grande.
Ricky, right here. And one smile right there, Ricky. Nice.
To Ricky Martin, who performed on the night. All the stars hit the red carpet. Inside, the biggest gong went to Lady Gaga, who beat Taylor Swift and Beyoncé to be named Artist of the Year. And for today's recommended read, to Afghanistan, where the World Health Organization has asked the Taliban to allow women aid workers to travel without male guardians, so they can help women struggling to access care after last week's earthquake. For more on any of the stories from today, check out Reuters.com or the Reuters app. Don't forget to follow us on your favourite podcast player. If you're listening on a smart speaker, just ask for the latest news from Reuters 7 days a week. We'll be back tomorrow with our daily headline show.